True that over the last few years you've elected people all over this country and have told you we're going to go there and we're going to make changes and nothing ever happens. It is true that our government is messed up. But our country is not a government. America's more than a government. America is a people. And the American people are as good and as strong as they have ever been. We just have a bad president, and this year we're going to fix that. We have to remember who we are. We are the greatest nation in the history of all mankind. Never be afraid to teach that to your children. We have to do more of that in this country. Because people will not work hard or sacrifice on behalf of the ordinary. Our kids need to know the truth, that they were born citizens of the single greatest nation in the history of all of mankind. All of mankind. You realize that most of the people that have ever lived in a country that said to them that it didn't matter how hard they worked, it didn't matter how long they tried, it didn't matter how good they were. Their future was going to depend on what who their parents were. Almost everyone that has ever lived in a society where their future was decided for you by whether or not your parents were the right people. But we have been blessed to live in the one place on earth where that's not the case. We have been blessed to live in the one place on earth where your future is up to you. That is what's made us so special. For over 2 centuries, that is what's made us so special. We were founded on a powerful truth. You know, this country was not founded on a political principle. This country was founded on a spiritual truth. That our rights come from God, not from government. That everyone is created equal, endowed by our Creator with a right to life and to liberty and to pursue happiness. And so for over 2 centuries, we've been a special country. And so for over 2 centuries, we've been a special country because we've been built on that idea. But now we're in trouble because we have leaders that have forgotten that. We have leaders that have walked away from that. We have leaders that have undermined that. In 2008, when Barack Obama was elected president, he promised change. But what he meant was that he wanted to change America to make it more like the rest of the world. He wanted us to become a country more like other countries. And what he didn't realize is America doesn't want to be another country. We want to be the United States of America. And so for 8 years, Barack Obama has undertaken this effort to change us. That's how you get a government takeover of health care. That's how you get a government trying to take over K-12 education using Common Core. That's how you get the gutting of our military. That's how you get the betrayal of our allies like Israel. And that's how you get a $100 billion deal with the Ayatollah in Iran. We are headed in the wrong direction. And here is the bad news, because we have to be realistic about our challenges. Here's the bad news. If we stay on the road we are on right now, if we keep doing in Washington what is happening right now, then we are going to be the first Americans in our history that leave their kids worse off than themselves. That's never happened. And that's why we can't lose this election. That's why 2016 is an election we have to win. And that's why I'm asking you for your vote. Because if you nominate me, we will beat the Democrats, we will defeat them in 2016, and we have a chance to turn America around. The Democrats know this, by the way. Polo. No, don't say polo. The Democrats know this. They attack me more than any other Republican in this race because they know that if I'm our nominee, we win. Why? Because number one, I'm going to unify this party when I'm our nominee. We have to come together. Look, if we're still fighting against each other in July, in August, in September, in October, we will lose. We have our differences. We don't have to agree on everything. But we better be together or we're going to lose. We will unify this party. And we won't just unify it. We will grow it. We are going to take the conservative message and the conservative movement to millions of Americans that have never voted for us before. We are going to take our message to Americans that live paycheck to paycheck. Someone asked me the other day, what's paycheck to paycheck? I said, I know what paycheck to paycheck is. I grew up paycheck to paycheck. I've lived paycheck to paycheck. Paycheck to paycheck is when you write a check on Wednesday, but you know you don't get paid till Friday, so you date it Saturday. That's paycheck to paycheck. I grew up that way. Not the check part, guys. But I mean, and I've lived in my own life, when Jeanette and I first got married especially. For years, people that have struggled financially have been told the Republican Party doesn't care about you. And too often we have not done enough to take our message to people that are struggling. We will when I'm our nominee. We're going to take our message to young Americans, many of whom now have to live with thousands of dollars of student loan debt. I had thousands of dollars of student loan debt. I owed over $100,000 myself. I never thought I'd pay it off. I had to write a book to pay it off. It's called An American Son, now available on paperback. Thank you for buying that book. I owed over $100,000 when I was first elected to the Senate 5 years ago. I can tell you I've never met her, but I paid Sally Mae a lot of money. We're going to take our message to young families raising their children, because Jeanette and I are raising 4 children in the 21st century, and it's gotten harder than ever. Not just to pay for them to grow up, because everything's more expensive. It's gotten harder than ever to instill the values they teach in our church. Instead of the values, they always try to ram down our throat in popular culture. If you nominate me, if I'm our nominee, we will unite this party and we will grow it and we will win. And then we will turn this country around. And here's how we're going to turn it around. We are going to re-embrace the principles that made us a great nation to begin with. Number one, we are going to return to adhering to and following and respecting the Constitution of the United States of America. I know that sounds unusual, right? That sounds so unusual. Someone says we're going to follow the Constitution. That should be a given. But for 7.5 years, we've had a president that's ignored the Constitution, undermined the Constitution, violated the Constitution. That's why when I'm President of the United States, on my first day in office, I will repeal every single one of Barack Obama's unconstitutional executive orders. When I'm President of the United States for the first time in 7 years, you will have a president that will defend your right to live out the teachings of your faith in every aspect of your life. When I'm President of the United States for the first time in 7 years, you will have a president that protects your Second Amendment right to defend yourself and your family from criminals and terrorists. And when I'm President of the United States for the first time in a long time, and this includes Republican presidents, you will have a president that understands that there is not supposed to be a federal government solution to every problem in America. The federal government is a limited government. The Constitution outlines those limitations. The Constitution basically says, here's the powers the federal government has. And these are the only powers you have. And if it isn't on this list, it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the states. We are going to follow the 10th Amendment when I am President of the United States. Limited government. Number two, we are going to return to the principles of free enterprise. Because the free enterprise economy is the only economic system in the world where you can make poor people richer and you don't have to make rich people poorer. It is the only economic model where everyone can get ahead and you don't have to pull anyone down. That's very different from what the Democrats want. Their answer to every problem is a tax. They literally want to tax everything. Every answer to every problem. You watch their debates, it's a smorgasbord. Government programs, spending, tax. That's all they care about. That's all they talk about. Big government doesn't work, and in fact, big government hurts people that are trying to make it. Look at the banking sector. Dodd-Frank is the example of big bank. It's a massive bill. It creates these huge agencies. And the big banks are bigger than they've ever been because they're the only ones that can follow all those rules. But the community bank, the regional bank, in essence, the people that lend money to small business, they're getting crushed by all of this. Who is more capable? For whom is it easier to follow the rules of big government? A major corporation or someone trying to start their business out of the spare bedroom of their home? This is why big government traps people. Big government traps people in poverty with welfare programs that literally pay people not to work. Government programs that in many instances have become a way of life or a lifestyle. When I'm president of the United States, if you are on welfare, you're going to either be working or going to school so you can get a good job and never again rely on government. We are going to re-embrace free enterprise because only by growing our economy can we provide prosperity. And you're going to have a president that realizes presidents don't create jobs. I always chuckle when I hear a politician say, I created 3 million jobs when I was the mayor, when I was the governor. And I always say, you hired 3 million government workers? Because unless you hired 3 million government workers, you did not create 3 million jobs. That's created by the private sector, not by the president, not by the governor, not by your senators. Those jobs are created when someone starts a business or grows an existing one. And we are going to make America the best place in the world to start a business or to grow an existing one. We're going to roll back and fix the tax code. We're going to roll back and limit regulations. We are going to save Social Security and Medicare and balance our budget. We are going to fully utilize all of our energy resources, including natural gas and coal and nuclear power plants. And we are going to repeal and replace Obamacare. And the third thing we're going to do is we are going to understand that while the federal government is a limited government, the one thing the federal government must do is keep us safe. Well, today we live in a world that's more dangerous than it was 7 years ago. Some of it is Barack Obama's fault. Not all of it, but some of it. The deal with Iran is Barack Obama's fault. $100 million in the hands of a radical Shia cleric, and they're not using that money to build orphanages. They're going to use that money to expand their military and one day buy nuclear weapons or build their own. North Korea is governed by a lunatic with nuclear weapons. Vladimir Putin is sowing instability in the Middle East and in Europe. And we all see what's happening with radical Islamic jihadists, especially ISIS. They are now found in over a dozen countries with affiliates. They are the most dangerous radical Islamic group in the history of the world. This is the world that we now live in, a dangerous place where the Chinese government steals our inventions and hacks our computers and practices shooting down our satellites and are taking over the South China Sea, the most important shipping lane in the world. And in the face of all these threats, you know what Barack Obama's done to our military? He's gutting it. We will soon have the smallest army since the end of World War II. We will soon have the smallest Navy in 100 years. And we will soon have the smallest Air Force and the oldest airplanes we have ever had in our history. The average age of a U.S. Air Force plane is 27 years old, which means the pilots are younger than the planes. This is reckless, and it's unfair to our men and women in uniform. They're out there serving us. We're still asking them to put their lives in harm's way with older airplanes and less people alongside them, and with rules of engagement that don't allow them to win. And so I want to be very clear with everyone here today and everyone watching at home. When I am President of the United States, we are going to have a Reagan-style rebuild of the United States military. When I'm President of the United States, we're going to have a real war on terror. I don't like war, by the way. I want peace. But sometimes you have to have war to defeat the enemies of peace. And ISIS is an enemy of peace. They burn people alive in cages. They take 10-year-old girls and they sell them off as brides to their killers and their fighters. That's why when I'm President of the United States, the best intelligence agencies in the world are going to find these terrorists. And the best military in the world is going to destroy them. And if we capture any of these terrorists alive, they're not going to have the right to remain silent. They're not getting a court hearing in Manhattan. They're not coming to Arkansas. They're going to Guantanamo. When I'm President of the United States, we're going to take care of our veterans in this country again, because we're not doing that now. If you're a veteran, or you have a loved one serving in the armed forces now or in the past, will you raise your hand so we can thank you for them? Thank you so much. God bless all of you. Thank you. Me too. My brother was a Green Beret, 7th Special Forces, 1968 through 1971. Look at that. Why do I tell you that? Because I know how veterans are treated through his own life. At some point in the late 60s, he jumped out of an airplane on a training jump. He landed wrong. It knocked out his front teeth. And so every few years he has to go to the VA to get his dental claim. And every few years he has to fight for his dental claim. They ask him, how do we know this happened in the Army? Prove it to us. And he says, well, it's the only time I jumped out of a plane. Over a quarter of the calls to my Senate offices are about VA matters. I'm not telling you there aren't good people at the VA. There are good people at the VA. And then there are people that are not doing their jobs. You want to know why we know that? This week in USA Today, their headline, in one of these, I think it was Tuesday, the headline, I'm paraphrasing, here's what it said. Calls to VA suicide hotline went to voicemail. You think they're going to fire anyone? You think anyone's going to be held accountable under this administration? They might get a bonus. They might get promoted. But when I'm President of the United States, if you are not doing a good job at the VA, you will be fired from your job at the VA. And when I'm President of the United States, my brother and every other veteran will be able to take their VA benefits to any hospital or any doctor that they want to go see. By the way, in thanking our veterans, we should remember that many of our veterans, when they come home, they don't stop serving our country. Many of these veterans become police officers and firefighters. Absolutely. In fact, I want to take a moment to thank our police officers and our firefighters. I am so tired of these media accounts beating up on them. We thank them for what they do for us. We thank them. If something goes wrong tonight, you're going to call 911. And they're going to come to your house or wherever you are, and they are willing to die before you do. So we thank them for what they do. Let me wrap up. I want first to apologize. At all of our events, I try to stay as long as I can and meet as many people. Here's the issue we have now. There's this primary on March 1st. It's like in 12 states or 11 states. They call it the SEC primary, except Florida's not in it. And there is no SEC without the Florida Gators. As you can see, I'm not politically correct when it comes to football. That's fine. But I do want to leave you with some thoughts. And again, I apologize. I try to stay as long as I can. But we're from here. We were just in Tennessee. 4,000 people came here to do this. I'm going to Nevada. To Las Vegas, and when it comes to our campaign, what happens in Vegas is not staying in Vegas. You know, we want to bring it all over because the Vegas caucus is on Tuesday. So what do you want, a picture? You got your picture? All right. So here's what I want to close with. Every election is important. They all matter. They really do. But this election is not, most elections are a choice, right, between political parties. Or they're a choice between some names on a ballot. And of course this one is too. But this one is more than that. This election is a referendum. The referendum is, what kind of country do you want America to be in the 21st century? Let me get more personal about it. This election is about what kind of country will America be when my 15-year-old daughter graduates from college? What kind of country will America be when my 13-year-old daughter buys her first home? What kind of country will America be when my 10-year-old son tries to start his first business? What kind of country will America be when my 8-year-old son tries to start a family? What kind of country will this nation be when your children are older? That's what we have to decide. We know what kind of country it's been for us. But what will it be 5 or 10 years from now? We decide this now. Let me tell you what kind of country this will be if the Democrats win. It will be a country in a lot of trouble. Because if Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders wins, then Obamacare becomes permanent. If Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders wins, then all of these unconstitutional executive orders stay. If Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton wins, Antonin Scalia, God rest his soul, will not be replaced by someone who thinks the Constitution should be applied as originally meant. He'll be replaced by someone who thinks the Constitution means whatever you want it to mean. And if the Constitution means whatever you want it to mean, it means nothing. These are how high the stakes are. We cannot lose this election. Bernie Sanders is a socialist. Now, usually when you say that about a candidate in America, they get angry, they deny it. Bernie says it in his commercials. She says, send him to Cuba. No, ma'am, no. No, we're not going to do that. He's not a communist. He's not a communist. He's a democratic socialist. And that doesn't make any sense to me. Democratic socialist, there's like dozens of socialist countries in the world. If you want to live in a socialist country, move to a socialist country. We want to be America. There's another candidate running. You may have heard of her. She used to have a house here. Her name is Hillary Clinton. Oh, so you've heard of her. Okay. Well, she's not qualified to be president of the United States. She's not qualified. Hillary Clinton is under FBI investigation, okay? Because she took classified information and put it on her private server because she thinks she's above the law. No one is above the law, and she's not above the law. And what she did was reckless and irresponsible, and potentially has put the lives of people serving this country or helping this country in danger. If she revealed the names of people in those emails that are helping us, even foreign nationals, she's done a terrible thing. I can tell you this, I'm on the Intelligence Committee. If one of my staffers was to take classified information out of the building without authorization, you know what would happen to them? They wouldn't be running for president. They would have been fired and they would have been prosecuted. But Hillary Clinton is disqualified from being commander-in-chief because on the 11th of September of the year 2012, 4 Americans serving our country in the city of Benghazi, Libya, were killed by a terrorist attack. And Hillary Clinton told their families that they died because of a YouTube video. She knew the truth and she lied to them. And let me tell you something. Anyone who lies to the families of people who have lost their lives in the service of our country can never be the commander-in-chief of the United States of America. So we cannot lose this election. In this election, we have to nominate someone who is a true conservative. And I'm as conservative as anyone running. I have a 15-year record of turning conservative ideas into conservative policy. I didn't become a conservative 2 years ago or a year ago. I'm proud of my record. I was in the state legislature in Florida. It's a part-time job, but we did a lot of good things. For example, in Florida, I'm not saying this would ever happen, but theoretically, if a private developer were to try to come and take your property to build a hotel, theoretically, I'm not saying that would ever happen. But if theoretically a developer decided to use the power of eminent domain from a government to take your property away from you, to build a hotel, you can't do that in Florida because I passed a law that made that impossible to do in the state of Florida. In Florida, we reformed our curriculum. We reformed our curriculum not through Common Core at the federal level. We did it at the state level, where K-12 education matters. In Florida, we expanded vocational training. You know why? Because we need to be a country that teaches people, again, to work with their hands. We need more welders and pipe fitters and plumbers and electricians and airplane mechanics. Then I was out of politics, and then I ran for the U.S. Senate. And today you can fire someone at the VA who's a senior executive that is not doing a good job because of a law I passed. Today a terrorist group named Hezbollah, an evil anti-Israeli group, has sanctions imposed against them because of a law we passed. Today the Obamacare bailout where they were going to use your taxpayer money to bail out private insurance companies, that bailout is gone because of the law I led the effort to pass. When I'm president, we're getting rid of the rest of it. I have been turning conservative ideas into conservative action for 15 years. I am as conservative as anyone in this race. But I'm the conservative that can win. And we have to win. We cannot lose and we cannot take a chance. This cannot be an election about making a point. This has to be an election about making a difference. Because the stakes are too high. And I'm not here to tell you the other people running don't love America, because I think they all do in their own, when it comes to the Democrats, unique way. I'm here to share with you why I'm running for president personally, in the hopes that I can convince you to give me your vote and encourage as many people as you know to vote for me as well. Thank you. See, I'm one down. One more. If you're undecided, would you raise your hand? No, I'm kidding. So we can just descend on you. Now look. America for me is not just the country I was born in. It's the country that literally, it changed the history of my family. When I stand in a room like this, I wonder, my father passed away in 2010. I actually believe that because of our faith, that God allows him to see this, or at least in some way, shape, or form, understand what his sacrifices meant. But you always wish that your parents were still around to see something. It's truly amazing. When you go to Tennessee and there's 4,000 people in a parking lot, when you go to another city like we're here today in Little Rock and you see so many, over 2,000 people here today, it blows you away. That just 2 decades ago, my father was a bartender behind a portable bar at a hotel in Miami, working into his 70s, late nights, weekends, and holidays, so I could have the chance to be anything I wanted. When my parents were young people have big dreams. They had big dreams. Their dreams became impossible because they grew up in a place like the one I described at the beginning. My parents were born on the island of Cuba to poor families. My mother was one of 7 girls raised by a disabled father in rural Cuba. It was hard for them. Right? She's told us often that luckily she never went to bed hungry, but she's confident her parents did. My father did go to bed hungry on many nights because when he was 4 days shy of his 9th birthday, his mother died. And so my father had to, in order to eat, he had to go work and leave school. He never went back to school. He would have worked for the next 70 years of his life. In 1956, my parents came to America because they wanted a different and better life. And they came here with nothing. They barely spoke English when they arrived, and my first words my father learned basically were, "I'm looking for a job." They worked hard and they sacrificed, and it was hard. They didn't know anyone, they had no money, they had no real education, it was hard. Years later, they would confess to me that in their early years in America, they were discouraged. There were days they wondered whether they had made a mistake. They even thought about going back at one point. I thank God they didn't. They persevered. And let me tell you, less than 10 years after my parents came here with nothing, my father still wasn't rich, and he never would become rich. He was a bartender at a hotel in Miami Beach, and less than 10 years after he came here, they owned a home in a safe and stable neighborhood. My parents worked and persevered, and they became so confident about the future that my brother, who's 21 years older than me, was born in the 50s. And I was born in 1971 when my parents were in their 40s. And my sister a year and a half after that. When you have kids 23 years apart, that's a lot of confidence. And they had even reason to be confident. For they were raising their children in the greatest nation in the history of all mankind. My parents loved America because they understood what life was like outside of America. And you know, the process of becoming American is an ongoing process. It never really ends. I one time asked my mom, "When did you know that you were an American?" And she said, "You know, I realized it on that horrible day in November of 1963 when President Kennedy was killed." And she wept because she fully understood that she was fully invested in America and what it was all about. My grandfather has another story that really amazed me. He lived with us many years before he passed away. When my grandfather was born in 1899, there were no airplanes in the sky. On a summer night in 1969, he watched on a black and white television as a man stepped foot on the moon. And you know what he said to himself? Americans can do anything. They can do anything. My parents understood how special this country was because they knew what life was like outside of it. And I grew up knowing that every day of my life. This was the country that changed their life. My parents never became rich people. They never became famous. You never would have heard about them had I not run for office. But I tell people every time that they ask me, I come from incredible privilege. I was raised by a mother and a father who were married, who loved each other, and who raised us together. That's an incredible head start in life. And I was raised by two parents who taught me from my earliest days that it didn't matter that he was a bartender, and it didn't matter that she was a maid, because I was a citizen of the one place on earth where the son of a bartender and a maid can be anything he or she was willing to work hard to become. My parents lived to see all four of their children live a life better than their own. And I have a debt to America I'll never repay. Because had my parents gone anywhere else on this planet or stayed in Cuba, I'm not sure where I would be today. I'm not even sure I would have been born. But I most certainly would not be running for the highest office in the land anywhere else on this planet but here. This is the only place on earth where the son of a bartender and a maid can have the same dreams and the same future as the son of a president or the son of a millionaire. And why do I share this with you? Because the story I just told you is not just my story. That story is our story. You see, I don't really think I know anyone in here personally. I don't know your story. Went from Cuba. I promise you, anywhere I go in America, there's a Cuban living there. They're coming to my event, and I love it. So we just doubled the Cuban population of Arkansas here today. 3, look at that. It's growing. Anyone else want to become Cuban? Raise your hand. I always tell people I'm Irish. Marco Rubio. All right? Why do I tell you this story? Because it's our story. Who among us here right now is not a generation or two removed from someone who made your future the purpose of their lives? You remember what your father did for you. You remember the 2 jobs he had and the sacrifices they made and the difficult choices they faced? You remember the sacrifices your mother made, or maybe it was what your grandparents did for your parents, or maybe it's what you're doing for your children now. The reason why I'm sharing this is our story. This is what makes us special. This is what makes us different. Every country in the world has rich people. We celebrate success here. We're not here to demonize success. We lift it up and we celebrate it. But what makes us special is not that we have successful people. What makes us special is how people became successful in this country. We are a place where millions of people who come from no privilege and no advantage through hard work and perseverance have been able to achieve a better life. And that makes us different. And that makes us special. And that makes us exceptional. And my friends, that's what we're about to lose. That is what's slipping away. Because if we stay on the road we're on right now, America will remain a rich and powerful country. But it will lose the American dream. And if we lose the American dream, we're not special anymore. If we become a country where who you are born to decides where you get to go, we will no longer be a special country. And we will lose that if we lose this election. We will lose the American dream if Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders is elected. And that's why they cannot win, and that's why they will not win. And that's why I'm asking you for your vote. Because if you elect me President of the United States, we are returning to the principles that made this the great nation that it is. We are embracing all of the principles that made this the greatest nation in the history of all mankind. If you elect me President of the United States, I will be a president for all Americans. I will never ask you to be angry at one group of Americans so that I win an election. I will never pit you against each other. We are not going to agree on everything. That's silly. We're Americans. We have opinions about everything. And we're a free people, so we can express them. But I'm going to be the president of all Americans. Even the people that don't like me. Even the people that protest against me. Even the people that vote against me. Even the people that say nasty things about me on Twitter. I am going to cut their taxes too. We have a chance to do something special. And we should. Because that's what all Americans do. You see, at the end, America was not special by accident. This greatness did not happen on its own. It happened because for over 2 centuries, each generation in our history did their part. For over 200 years, each generation in our history faced great challenges. We were founded by declaring independence from the most powerful empire in the world. Then we had a civil war that almost ended the young country. We had a First World War that was the bloodiest conflict in history. And then we survived the Great Depression. And then we had a Second World War. And then we had a long and dangerous Cold War. The 60s were a difficult time. America was divided bitterly over Vietnam, over the Civil Rights Movement. The 70s, long gas lines and a president that had to resign in scandal. We have always faced great challenges. And for over 2 centuries, each generation before us confronted them. Each generation before us solved their problems. And that's why for over 2 centuries, each generation has left the next better off. Now the time has come for us to do our part. Now the time has come for this generation to do what those before us has done. And if I'm elected President of the United States, we will. If I'm elected President of the United States, we are going to embrace limited government and free enterprise and a strong national defense and the Judeo-Christian values that made us special. And we are going to apply those principles to the unique challenges of our time. And I want you to know, despite how difficult things may seem right now, I want you to know what history will say about us, this generation of Americans, if we do what needs to be done right now. Here's what history will say. It will say that we, this generation, in the early years of this new century, lived in a difficult and rapidly changing time. And it will say that we almost got it wrong. We almost got it wrong. But then in 2016, we remembered who we were. We remembered who we were as a nation and as a people. And this generation confronted its challenges. And this generation solved its problems, not left it for their kids. And this generation embraced its opportunities. And because we did what needed to be done, the American dream didn't just survive. The American dream reached more people and changed more lives than ever before. Because we did what needed to be done. Because we did what needed to be done, our children became the freest and the most prosperous Americans that ever lived. Because we did what needed to be done, the 21st century became a new American century, and we left for our children what our parents left for us, the single greatest nation in the history of all of mankind. I need your vote, and I thank you for coming today. God bless Arkansas.